Today in this video, I want to share a quick story about a brown bag activity that ended up excluding the teacher. So in the classroom, we have tons of activities and relationship building opportunities. And one of those that I want to highlight today is called the brown bag activity. Now, let me put a little context to this story. I'm in the middle of a training. It's 2:40 in the afternoon. I'm ready to take a caffeine break. I pop a Dr. Pepper. A teacher walks up to me in the training and is like, "Hey, Mr. Curtis, I am loving today's training." I'm like, "Oh, that is awesome. I love when your tribe speaks your own language." But during this impromptu conversation, I just happened to ask him, "Hey, so what is your go-to activity?" He's like, "I love the brown bag activity." Now, if you're not familiar with the brown bag activity, it's just simply like show and tell on steroids. It's like kids put 4 or 5 objects in a brown bag, they bring them to school, they unpack them one at a time, almost like Revelation, and then they start to reveal some of their favorite items from home, and we learn so much about them. So that's what the brown bag activity is. Now, knowing this context, I simply asked him, "Oh my God, I love the brown bag activity too. It's so much fun." So let me ask you a quick question. Do your students learn a lot about each other when they open the brown bags? And he's like, "Oh my God, it's one of our favorite times about learning about other classmates." I'm like, "Cool. Hey, so let me ask you a question. Do you learn a lot about your kids?" He's like, "So much that I take a clipboard and I've got to make notes about all of these student objects so that I can remember them." I'm like, "Cool, even better." So the last question I asked him was, "So what do you typically put in your brown bag?" And you know what he shared? "I don't do a brown bag." And I was like, "What?" Now, understand, I did not judge him. I was not condemning him. I was very curious. I said, "Oh my God, so tell me, why don't you do a brown bag?" And you know what he shared with me? It's going to blow your mind. He shared with me, "Because the directions didn't tell me to." And I was like, "What?" Hey, all right, educators, before we go any further, in the comments below, share what are you currently doing to make sure that you intentionally build community with yourself in your classroom. And if you look at it and you research brown bag, it is true. Nowhere on the brown bag activities, when you Google this, do you see where it explicitly tells the teacher to make sure that you share a brown bag. To me, this was like a 2x4 moment, particularly in the work where we create connections in the classroom for teachers and students. And to me, this was so exciting. I took away this conversation at 2:40 in the afternoon over Dr. Pepper, and I took it back to my team and I said, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe what I discovered." Teachers, we're so guilty at following rules and regulations and directions to a T that will exclude ourselves out of our own community in the classroom. I mean, it's just interesting because if you heard when I said he didn't share a brown bag and your little educator heart thumped and you're like, "Why wouldn't he do a brown bag?" I wasn't judging him either. I just was very curious. And what I started thinking about, those that naturally, intrinsically share a brown bag without any directions, I thought you were the norm. But what I realized is you're the exception. It's interesting that most teachers are great soldiers. We just follow the directions. And I cannot tell you how many a majority of teachers fail to include themselves in community building in the classroom and creating connections. This, to me, was why we made it so impactful to understand that cross-connecting has to include 3 areas. We have to allow and tell when our students should talk and share with each other. We have to tell classroom teachers when should the teacher listen to the kids and when should the teacher share with the kids. We learned from this valuable conversation at 2:40 in the afternoon in the middle of a training how impactful that cross-connecting must include when we tell the teacher to do every part of the activity so that they make sure that they're always including themselves in community building in the classroom. If you're wanting to learn how to create more connections in your classroom, I'm going to encourage you to go to our website at ddiscipline.com.